Namaste everyone, I am Dr. Ankita Savan. Welcome to Physio Vitals, and today's video is on shoulder girdle. In shoulder girdle, we are going to just discuss about glenohumeral joint or shoulder joint. Alright, so in shoulder girdle, we have four joints. First is glenohumeral joint, which is the main shoulder joint. Then we have sternoclavicular joint, acromioclavicular joint, and scapulothoracic joint. Now, the glenohumeral joint or the shoulder joint, it's a type of synovial joint of ball and socket variety. It is a ball and socket variety because the head of the humerus forms a ball and glenoid cavity is a socket variety. So now articular surfaces, we have glenoid cavity of the scapula and the head of the humerus, and they form glenohumeral joint. So structurally it is a weak joint because the glenoid cavity is too small and shallow to hold the head of the humerus in place. So however, this arrangement permits a great mobility. Alright, now the stability is provided by acromioclavicular arc. Now this arc is actually the acromion and clavicle. Okay, these two bones have linkage by the ligament called as coracoacromial ligament. So this three structures forms the coracoacromial arc. Then musculotendinous cuff, then glenoid labrum helps in deepening the glenoid fossa. Stability is also provided by the muscles attaching the humerus to the pectoral girdle, the long head of biceps brachii, long head of triceps. Also, the atmospheric pressure also stabilizes the joint. Alright, moving further to the ligaments now. We have capsular ligament, coracohumeral, transverse, and glenoid labrum. In capsular ligament, which is very loose and permits free movement. Alright, capsular is loose and permits free movement. It is least supported inferiorly. Alright, least supported inferiorly where dislocations are common. Alright, dislocation may damage the closely related axillary nerve. Now, middle part of the capsular nerve attached to the scapula beyond the supraglenoid tubercle. Okay, we have supraglenoid tubercle and infraglenoid. So, the capsule medially is attached beyond the supraglenoid tubercle and the margins of the labrum. Now, laterally it is attached to anatomical neck of the humerus. Inferiorly, the attachment extends uh, down to the surgical neck. Now, superiorly, it is deficient for passage of the tendon of the long head of biceps brachii. Anteriorly, the capsule is reinforced by the supplemental band called superior, middle, and inferior glenohumeral ligament. The area between the superior and middle glenohumeral ligament is a point of weakness in the capsule, which is a common site of anterior dislocation of the humeral head. Alright, now the capsule is lined with the synovial membrane. An extension of this membrane forms a tubular sheath for the tendon of the long head of biceps brachii. Moving further now to the second, which is coracohumeral ligament. So it extends from the root of the coracoid process to the neck of the humerus. From the coracoid process to the neck of the humerus opposite the greater tubercle. It gives strength to the capsule. Next we have transverse humeral ligament. So basically it bridges the upper part of the bicipital groove of the humerus between the greater and lesser tubercle, right? The tendon also, the tendon of the long head of biceps brachii passes deep to the ligament. Now next we have glenoid labrum. So it is a fibrocartilaginous rim which covers the margins of the glenoid cavity, thus increases the depth of the cavity. Moving further to the, so now in bursa we have subacromion bursa, subscapularis and infraspinatus bursa. So the subacromial bursa and the subdeltoid bursa are commonly continuous with each other but may be separate. Collectively they are called as subacromial bursa, which separates the acromion process and the coracoacromial ligaments from the supraspinatus tendon and permit smooth motion. Any failure of this mechanism can lead to an inflammatory condition of the supraspinatus tendon. Then we have subscapularis bursa, which communicates with the joint cavity. Infraspinatus bursa may communicate with the joint cavity. Moving further to the relations. Superiorly, the relation is coracoacromial arc. As I earlier mentioned that the coracoid bone, acromion and the ligament, which all these three structures form coracoacromial arc. Then we have subacromial bursa. Just below the acromial we have subacromial bursa, supraspinatus and deltoid muscle. Inferiorly now we have long head of triceps, axillary nerve and posterior circumflex humeral artery. Same way anteriorly we have subscapularis, coracobrachialis, short head of biceps and deltoid. Posteriorly we have infraspinatus, teres minor and deltoid. And within the joint long head of biceps brachii, as you can see in this diagram. Superiorly we have this coracoacromial, coracoid, coracoacromialar, subacromial bursa and all the structures which I have mentioned. This is anterior deltoid, posterior deltoid, infraspinatus, supraspinatus. Here we have long tendon within the joint, tendon subscapularis, short head of biceps, axillary nerve, long head of biceps, teres major, teres minor, brachial vessels. Alright. Now blood supply. So anterior circumflex humeral vessel, posterior circumflex humeral vessel, suprascapular vessel and subscapular vessel. This is the blood supply of the shoulder joint. Nerve supply, axillary nerve, musculocutaneous nerve and suprascapular nerve. Now movement of the shoulder joint. We have flexion extension, abduction and adduction, medial lateral rotation and circumduction. So flexion is 0 to 180 degree, extension 0 to 60 degrees, abduction is 0 to 180 degrees, adduction is 180 to 0 degree, medial rotation, lateral rotation, circumduction. Now we'll move to the movements of the shoulder joint now. So as we know that there is a freedom of mobility at any cost of stability, at the cost of stability. There is no other joint in the body which is more mobile than the shoulder joint. So wide range of mobility is due to laxity of its fibrous capsule and the 4 times large size of the head of the humerus as compared to the shallow glenoid cavity. Range of movement is further increased by concurrent movement of the shoulder girdle. However, this large range of motion takes glenohumeral joint more susceptible to dislocations, instability, degenerative changes and other painful conditions, especially in individuals who perform repetitive overhead motions such as cricketers. So now flexion and extension we'll see. So during flexion the arm moves forward. See, arm is moving forward and medially forward, and this is medial side, so medially. And during extension arm goes backwards and laterally. Thus flexion and extension takes place in a plane parallel to the surface of glenoid cavity. So this is glenoid cavity and here this is flexion, this is extension. So these are in the parallel plane. Alright. Now moving further to abduction and adduction. So it takes place at the right angle perpendicular to the plane of flexion extension. Flexion extension is in this way, adduction abduction is perpendicular to the flexion and extension plane. So in essence approximately midway between the sagittal and the coronal plane. In abduction the arm moves anterolaterally. Abduction mein the arm moves anterolaterally away from the trunk. This movement is the same plane as that of the body of the scapula. Moving further to the medial and lateral rotation. This is medial rotation, here is lateral rotation. So best demonstrated in mid flex elbow, elbow at 90 degree. In this position the hand is moved medially across the chest in medial rotation and laterally in lateral rotation of the shoulder joint. So when the palm in mid flex elbow, if your palm comes near your stomach, that will be the medial rotation, and when the arm is going outside your body, that is lateral rotation. Now circumduction is a combination of different movements, as a result of which the hand moves along a circle. The range of any movement depends on the availability of the area of free articular surface on the head of the humerus. Muscle bringing the movement, I'll further discuss the muscles. So now analysis of the overhead movement of the shoulder joint. Firstly we have glenohumeral, the only glenohumeral joint motion cannot bring about 180 degrees of movement that takes place in the overhead shoulder movement. The scapula contributes to overhead flexion and abduction by rotating upwardly by 50 to 60 degrees. So glenohumeral joint contributes about 100 to 120 degrees of flexion. and 90 to 120 degrees of abduction to a total of 170 to 180 degrees of overhead movement. This takes place overall ratio of 2 degrees of motion of the shoulder to 1 degree of scapulothoracic motion, and is often referred to as scapulohumeral rhythm. So there is like this 2 is to 1 ka ratio always. So that mostly the 60% work is done by the shoulder glenohumeral joint, and the rest of the 40% is done by the scapulothoracic joint. That's the reason the scapulohumeral rhythm is very important. This for every 15 degree of elevation. Now 10 degree occurs at the shoulder joint and 5 degree occurs due to the movement of the scapula. Alright, so 1 is to 2 ka ratio, 2 is to 1 ka ratio. The humeral head undergoes lateral rotation at around 90 degree of abduction to help clear the greater tubercle under the acromion. What happens while we are doing the overhead motion, when the humerus is at 90 degree, the humeral head undergoes lateral rotation and the greater tubercle lies under the acromion. Although deltoid is the main abductor of the shoulder, the rotator muscles, namely the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor and subscapularis, plays a very important role. So these are the 6 muscles. Rotator cuff plays a very important role in providing static and dynamic stability of the head of the humerus. Thus the deltoid and these 4 muscles constitute a couple which permits true abduction in the plane of the body of the scapula. In addition, the scapular muscles such as trapezius, serratus anterior, levator scapulae and rhomboids provide stability and mobility of the scapula. So we saw the rotator cuff, stability of glenohumeral joint. Now the trapezius, serratus anterior, levator scapulae, rhomboids, these all muscles provides stability to the scapula. Fine. Serratus anterior is chiefly inserted into the inferior angle of the scapula. It rotates this angle laterally. All right, the inferior angle ko it rotates laterally. At the same time, trapezius rotates the medial border. So this is the scapula. All right. So this is inferior border. Here we have serratus anterior. Here medial angle mein we have trapezius. So this pulls laterally. The inferior angle goes laterally, and the medial angle comes medially because trapezius pulls it. Alright, so at the root of the spine of scapula downwards. So this synergic action of these two muscles turn the glenoid cavity upwards. Here as we have the glenoid cavity, so the scapula rotates and the glenoid cavity faces upwards, increasing the range of abduction at the shoulder joint. Now moving further to the clinical anatomy. So clavicle dislocations, we'll see first that. So backward dislocation is rare. Okay, the clavicle may be dislocated either of its two ends, medial or lateral end. At the medial end, it is usually dislocated forwards. And as I said, backward dislocation is rare, and as it is prevented by the costoclavicular ligament. Moving further to shoulder dislocation. Now this is very important. Um, the shoulder joint is more prone to dislocations than any other joint. This is due to laxity of the capsule and the disproportionate area of the articular surface. Dislocation usually occurs when the arm is abducted. In this position, the head of the humerus presses against the lower unsupported part of the capsular ligament. Thus, almost always the dislocation is primarily subglenoid. Subglenoid means underneath glenoid, inferior. Dislocation endangers the axillary nerve, which is closely related to the lower part of the joint capsule. Moving further to the optimum attitude. In order to avoid ankylosis, many diseases of the shoulder joint are treated in an optimum position of the joint. In this position, the arm is abducted 45 to 90 degrees. Now, shoulder tip pain. Now, most, not all pain are actually shoulder pain. Some can be referred pain as well. So, the irritation of the peritoneum underlying the diaphragm from an surrounding pathology causes referred pain to the shoulder joint. This is so because the phrenic nerve carries the impulses from the peritoneum and the supraclavicular nerve. Both arises from the spinal segments C3 and C4. So it might be that some patient might come to your clinic to you regarding the shoulder pain, but you need to evaluate the patient as a whole. So you need to check the peritoneum, diaphragm and all that areas as well, because there might be the referred pain as well. Next, approaches. The shoulder joint is most commonly approached surgically from the front. However, for aspiration, the needle may be introduced either anteriorly through the deltopectoral triangle closer to the deltoid or laterally just below the acromion. Now, frozen shoulder. This is a common occurrence. Pathologically, the two layers of the synovial membrane becomes adherent to each other. Clinically, the patient might complain of aggressively increasing pain in the shoulder, stiffness in the joint, and restriction of all movements, particularly external rotation, abduction, and medial rotation. And the age, and this condition lies in the age between 40 to 60 years of age. As the contribution of the glenohumeral joint is reduced, the patient shows altered scapulohumeral rhythm as well due to excessive use of scapular motion while performing overhead flexion and abduction. The surrounding muscles show disuse atrophy. The disease is self-limiting and the patient may recover spontaneously in about 2 years and much earlier by physiotherapy. Since shoulder joint can be excluded if the patient can raise both his arms above the head, bring the two palms together, deltoid muscle and axillary deltoid muscle and axillary nerve are likely to be intact. So I hope you like the video. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for listening patiently. Thank you.